everyone, it's Tiny Games here. Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about my predictions for Disney Dreamlight Valley and sort of the future of the game and what we can expect. Now, as you'll have probably seen from my last video, Disney Dreamlight Valley have a survey out at the moment, which I do highly recommend everyone fills out. But I feel like the survey kind of gives us some hints as to where the future of the game might go. Now I do want to express fully at the beginning of this video that just because something is mentioned in the survey doesn't mean it's guaranteed to come immediately or anything like that. Like, we can't know for certain, and everything I'm going to say in this video is my own kind of like personal predictions for the game. There's no evidence for it, you know, it's just like a gut feeling kind of thing. So yeah, just had to preface that first of all, just to say, like, look, disclaimer, none of this is confirmed. This is my initial theories and things like that. So I guess the first thing we need to discuss really is how the sort of updates function, what we can expect from the game and everything like that. So one of the first things that I would sort of say is how we get characters and how often. So there's three main ways of getting characters. The first one is realms. The second is sort of like mystery arrivals to the valley, usually in some form of, you know, hunting game for some sort of clue or element and stuff like that. And then the last thing is the DLC. Now the DLC is kind of like, is it an outlier? Is that the word you use? Like, it's kind of new in a sense, even though like the DLC is like a year old now almost. It is still kind of new to sort of how long the game has been going and the typical usual ways of how we get characters in game. So I would say the current pattern we have at the moment is about every 2 months we get an update. Now this is on average because, you know, there's different gaps between sort of star paths and updates and things like that. We did have a bit of a, I don't want to say a mix up, but we had like almost like 2 updates very close when we had Vanellope and Fairy Godmother come in. There was a lot of theories around that. I have my own theories and speculations and stuff like that. But generally speaking, every time that we get a update, we get a star path, we get characters, and that's usually every 2 months typically. And it tends to go in a pattern of realm, mystery valley item, realm, mystery valley item, realm, mystery valley item kind of thing, roughly. Again, not fully, like when we first started the game there was way more characters and other things like that, so just on average. Realms typically come with 2 characters, again not always but typically, and we tend to find that when people come to the valley through a mystery item, that usually tends to involve like one individual or a mix of 2 people from different universes, like thinking Olaf and Mirabelle or Jack coming on his own kind of thing. So that's typically the breakdown of how we get these items. And then I would say, sort of going on from that, we also have the DLC. Now the DLC is a bit different. We've got 3 updates with the DLC. The first initial update or its release brought 3 characters. Then we had a 4th character come with the second update. And then with the last update, we are going to get a 5th character, which should be Jafar. I couldn't imagine it being anyone else, to be honest. Obviously, they might throw in an extra surprise character there, but from what they've said, it should be 5. So that's kind of like the DLC and how that follows. That's 3 updates and they're more seasonal rather than like every 2 months. So we had like a summer update, or we will have at the end of this, we've had like a spring update and then the winter was when it was released. And my thoughts and theories, autumn we're not going to have anything DLC wise, but I think we could get a future announcement for another DLC for Christmas. My main theory for that is that typically there can be a boost in sales around the Christmas period for games, because typically a lot of families buy them for their children or as gifts and presents and things like that. So I imagine Gameloft will want to utilize the uptick in sales at that time period for a big announcement that's going to draw people in, perhaps newer players and stuff like that. There are always with sort of games and sort of like how many players there are, it typically goes up and down. But certainly during those seasonal periods, it's great to bring new players to the game that you might have, like, to replace players that you might have lost and things like that. So they're going to want something big and bold for that, or at least for the winter update. So I do have a feeling if we don't get a DLC for winter, we are going to have the continuation of the Skull Rock storyline. That is my prediction. Again, like I said, they want something big, they want something bold to really draw people in, and I think a continuation of the storyline will really do that. I was admittedly a little bit concerned at first about the storyline and how it was going to go, because we did have, at the end of the first storyline, we had a little end credit scene which alluded to Act 2. And with that, we saw an outline of Jafar. So when I saw Jafar was tied to the DLC, I'm not going to lie, I was very confused, because if Jafar was Act 2, does that mean the storyline was only ever going to continue with DLCs? Like, to me, it didn't kind of make sense, because if Jafar is Act 2, as they alluded to at the end of Act 1, then that means you need the DLC in order to progress with the storyline, which means buying DLCs, which really kind of keeps the base game players out of the loop or out of any future storyline unless they opt into the DLC. I always had the impression or the feeling that DLC, in a sense, should be its own little storyline, not an Act 2. It's its own world. So it did have me very, very confused, and I don't know if it's maybe just the wording or the way, like, they perceive Act 2s and DLCs and stuff like that. Like, it could just be, like, personal interpretation there. But I do think we will get a continuation of the main storyline. So perhaps some extra additional forgotten stuff. I think the main thing we are going to get with the main storyline continuing is Skull Rock. So with Skull Rock, we did see at the end of the game, if you place all the pillars on Skull Rock Island in the correct location, you can actually get a cutscene, basically, which Skull Rock seems to move or something, like it's like something inside shifts, something inside kind of breaks, and that was it. We just knew that Merlin was going to investigate Skull Rock and kind of come back to us, and we've heard nothing since. Absolutely nothing. So a lot of people are kind of like, what's happening with Skull Rock? What's happening? Because Skull Rock is base game. Skull Rock is in our valley. So whatever they do with it, I don't think it can be a DLC personally, because it's attached to our valley. So I feel like it has to be kind of like a base game update. So my thoughts and theories are that we are going to get Peter Pan at the end of this year tied to Skull Rock. And I think we might get Peter Pan and Hook. Now, my bad news, I guess, with that, I don't know if we're going to get Tinkerbell. Controversial one. I do really want Tinkerbell. I do really, really want Tinkerbell. Like, she's a must-have for me. But if you go into your game and check out the furniture catalogue, you will see there is a section for Peter Pan and a section for Disney's fairies. Now, my thoughts are Tinkerbell's going to come in, but under the fairies umbrella, which would allow for the other fairies to come in, which I think is fantastic. I think that's absolutely a great idea. But it does mean we might not get Tinkerbell immediately, perhaps. I'm wondering if maybe we get Tinkerbell as a realm, as like a Pixie Hollow realm. And with that, we can get a couple of other characters too. Now, in terms of like the survey and things that tie into this, some of the things I want to discuss is actually the fact that certain characters aren't really talked about. So when it goes through sort of options of things you would like to see come to the game, Peter Pan is mentioned once, which is in the drop down kind of like menu. Well, not drop down, but like in the menu where you list your interests for certain characters, and there's tons of them listed. There's like 2 pages. Peter Pan is on there, but no mention of Tinkerbell, no mention of Hook. But he's not mentioned when it talks about franchises coming to the game. So, I have a feeling Peter Pan is coming. That's why they didn't mention it too much. They already have plans. He's going to come. He's going to come with Skull Rock. And I don't think they really care to gauge the interest on it, because they know that's what they want to add. They know that's what they want to do. I think he's a big part to the storyline in the sense of, one, he ties very nicely with the Forgotten. You know, we talk about childhood, memories sort of being forgotten, turning into adulthood, losing your childhood, and things like that. So Peter Pan is perfect for tying into the Forgotten storyline in a sense. So I think he would work very well, and I think he's guaranteed to come, and I think he's part of the next big storyline kind of thing. So that's my theories with Peter Pan. I think most of the characters that are mentioned in this survey are people that are not going to be tied to the main storyline. They're just people who are going to come into the game a bit like Mulan and Mushu, no relevance to main story, but are just additions to the game to make the world feel more full and alive and such. So I think a lot of the ones that they've mentioned, you know, Winnie the Pooh, Alice in Wonderland, stuff like that, there's a reason why those ones are mentioned, because they're not going to be tied to the main storyline. That's my thoughts and theories. I do also want to say they've obviously not listed every character, because if they list every character, the survey is going to be stretched way too thin. I think they're going to struggle to come to some conclusion and direction that the majority want if they have too vast of an option. So they're going to limit the choices we have. And it doesn't mean certain characters aren't going to come to the game. Like, for instance, I have seen a few comments on Facebook about Atlantis and Kida and stuff like that. And Atlantis it's not that it's already in the game, but there's hints of it. There are clear, obvious nods to it, and I think they will come eventually. I just think maybe they're long-term kind of characters, if that makes sense. Doesn't mean they're not coming. I think they will come. It's just, I don't think they're quite so immediate. Sorry everyone who's looking forward to that. I don't think it's going to happen. So yeah, basically this survey is to judge what kind of realms we open up that have no impact on the game as such in terms of their planned storyline. Because let's not forget, they have openly said they had a planned storyline up to like 2025. In one of their articles that they did a while back, they actually expressed that. So we know they already have a storyline planned, and certain characters will have to be tied to that, which will lead me into my next point of someone who I think's coming, but I'll get onto that in a second. So I think a lot of the people or characters that are mentioned in this survey are characters that they're going to try and judge whether or not they can bring them in as a realm, which characters are most requested, and then also like which characters might work better as DLCs, because obviously DLCs is a big way for them to earn money, so they need to make sure that the characters they have in DLCs will earn them money, that people are going to want to buy them. I think that's why when we had the DLC for Rapunzel and Eve, I have a lot of issues with the fact that they were in the DLC, because of the fact that, to me, I think it was really unfair that they were in the DLC when they were showcased so heavily in the like base game trailers and things like that. Well, actually, I don't think Eve was featured in the trailer. Certainly Rapunzel's tower was. It was showcased in the Glade. It was on the main key art. Eve was shown in the memories that you get early game, like she's outside of Chez Remy's and stuff like that. So to me, I always felt like they should have been base game characters, because they were really shown early. It was almost like a prompt. Like when I bought Dreamlight Valley, I bought it under the assumption that Rapunzel was going to be there or come to the game, because she's showcased in the trailer, you know, or at least her houses. So like, you told me I was going to get a house, I expect her character, kind of thing, you know. That was kind of my initial viewpoints, like back in the day. Or like my initial assumptions. So I do think that they were a little cheeky putting them in the DLC, but I think they put highly requested characters in the DLC to ensure it sold. They wanted to make sure that what came in the DLC would sell, that people would be excited for. So I do think that some of the answers we give could actually lead us to potentially getting certain characters come as DLC. So maybe we need to be careful who we say we want. Otherwise we're going to be paying for those characters. But I do... Sorry, it just made me laugh. I do think there was a glaring omission when going through the characters that you could choose and stuff like that. That there was a princess, one of the big princesses, like I would say one of the main princesses, wasn't mentioned at all. And that's Princess Aurora. Now, if you know me, you know she's one of my faves. I absolutely love her. She's my favourite princess. I think she's planned for storyline too. I think she's planned for storyline with Maleficent. I think Maleficent ties into the Forgotten storyline so well because of the fawns. Like, it's such a big association to her. Like, obviously, when Maleficent, you know, surrounded the castle, it was with fawns. That's what Philip had to fight his way through before they approached it. And she's typically known as, like, one of the big bads. Like, when you look at Disney media and shows, she's typically, like, iconically one of the big bads of all the villains, kind of thing. So, I think she's going to play a similar role in the game, in that she's classed as like almost like an end game big boss material. Now obviously we don't have like fighting or anything in this game, but I feel like that's where she's kind of gonna come in, is sort of to do with the storyline, which is why I think Princess Aurora wasn't mentioned. So I do think she's come into the game. I am unsure when. I don't know if she will come with the next series of like updates the next year, if that makes sense. She might be later, which is absolutely devastating for me because I really want her in the game. I think if she does come, it's going to be late, tail end of next year, because I think the next big story development we're going to get is Peter Pan. It's going to be Skull Rock. I think people need Skull Rock, and I think they know that, and I think they're holding off, and I think Skull Rock is going to be the big thing for the next storyline kind of progression. So I do think Aurora and Maleficent are going to come, but they might be not this year's big edition, they might be next year's. That's my predictions for them. So, predictions of characters that I think are definitely coming. Peter Pan and Hook coming this year, at the end of this year, to start the Skull Rock storyline. Aurora, Maleficent, they're going to come at some point, but I think that will be next year's big storyline. Now, I think looking at the the survey, what's been put in the survey, and what we're going to potentially get in terms of like responses that I've seen people put in social media. I've tried to read like most of the comments. Obviously, I'm not on every social media, or I can't read every single form of social media. But certainly scrolling through what I thought was all the Twitter responses, scrolling through what I assume is the majority, if not most, of the Facebook responses, I think we're going to get Winnie the Pooh. On both Twitter and Facebook, I felt Winnie the Pooh was the name that was mentioned the most. Obviously, a lot of names were mentioned, a lot of people talking about characters from the survey and people talking about people outside of the survey. But I think based on a lot of the comments, I think we're going to get Winnie the Pooh. There did seem to be almost like a difference between Twitter's comments and Facebook's comments. I felt Facebook's comments were way more varied than what Twitter's were, which was kind of interesting to see. But obviously what I see is just a small snapshot, and I was wrong when it came to, you know, the update with the furniture thing. I hadn't seen many people asking for paths to be changed, but apparently that was actually a big thing that had been requested. So obviously I'm going by my own experience of what Twitter and Facebook shows me as the comments. One of the things I did notice, especially on Twitter, was a lot of people saying no to Star Wars. I think Star Wars is probably one of the most divisive ones that I've seen. There seems to be people that are happy with it and people that are very, very unhappy. And I think looking at a lot of the feedback and comments, a lot of the people who want Star Wars are happily saying, I'll have this as a DLC. I'll have this as a DLC. So I think if Star Wars comes, just based on what I've seen comments-wise, I think Star Wars will come as a DLC if it comes. But I don't think it's going to come very soon. I don't think it's going to be something that we get really fast. I think it might be a bit standalone. I think we could potentially get like 2 DLCs at once. Or not necessarily at once, but like, you know how the DLC at the moment seems to be seasonal? Like perhaps we would get a Star Wars DLC to bridge the gap, like an autumn kind of DLC. I could definitely see them doing something like that as a way to boost sales, but obviously knowing that not all the audience will want to purchase. I think Star Wars works. I've seen a lot of people commenting, oh, I don't want the live action. Star Wars is not just live action. There are so many animated shows. And I think in a lot of the animated shows, the art style would work very well with Dreamlight Valley art style. And I actually think that Star Wars would fit in beautifully with this kind of game, especially with the storylines. The storylines are almost like a perfect mix in a sense. Like, in the Disney Dreamlight Valley world, we not only live with the good characters, but we live with the bad. We have Scar, you know, we have Mother Gothel. There's a lot of talk about, you know, redemption, forgiveness, second chances. And if Star Wars isn't a fit for that, like, Star Wars is about, you know, Jedis and Siths. It's about, things shouldn't be absolute, you know, it's not just good versus evil and things like that. Like, I feel like in terms of the context of villains and good characters living together, Star Wars is a perfect addition in my eyes. And I think Star Wars can actually be very cozy. I feel like people who maybe aren't as big of a fan of Star Wars don't realise that you could definitely get cozy vibes with Star Wars. Although Star Wars is a very political piece, and obviously there is fighting and stuff like that, but there is a very, like, cozy side to Star Wars. I mean, just look at The Mandalorian. It's a story of a man trying to protect his child, you know, because let's face it, baby Grogu is his, you know, I'm just saying. You know, at the heart of it, there's a lot of very, sort of cozy values and principles, and I think if you can have characters like Gaston, Mother Gothel and Scar, like Scar literally murdered someone. If you can if you think Scar's values are okay for the game, but not the values in Star Wars, it makes me question that. Now, obviously, saying you don't want Star Wars in is perfectly fine for your opinion. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, and certainly I think, like, I can see why people don't want Star Wars from the classic Disney characters, so absolutely valid. But I just think there is a lot of reasons why Star Wars would fit well in this kind of game and in this world and everything like that. I mean, this is a world of imagination. It's a world of, childhood. And at least for me growing up, Star Wars was a massive part of my childhood. So, as big of a part as what Disney was. So to me, like, it makes sense. But I appreciate not everyone's into Star Wars. A lot of people see Star Wars as separate from Disney, which is understandable because it was. I know that they're now acquired and stuff like that. So I understand. I see both viewpoints. And I think we're entitled to that. But I think based on the comments and I think based on what a lot of people will put, I think if they do bring Star Wars to the game, it won't be soon. And it will possibly be a DLC. There was a lot of animals in the survey, which I do think that, like, technically we've got animals in game. We've got Mickey Mouse, we've got Daisy Duck, blah blah blah. I think with Figaro coming in as well and stuff like that, I think they're really trying to bridge the gap of who should be a character and who shouldn't. I think the survey mentioning Pongo and Perdita and 101 Dalmatians is sort of evidence that they want to see, okay, how much do people want these animal characters, like assigned animals that aren't obviously the main big six? How do we integrate this? I think it's easily done. We have Simba and Nala, obviously. But I think they're trying to bridge that gap because obviously, what do we have as companions and critters versus what do we have as like villagers? It's that same issue, I guess, with Animal Crossing, in that you live with villagers that are like cats and birds and things like that, but then we catch bugs, we catch fish and stuff like that, and we put them in a museum. I think it's that kind of, not a morality thing, but like bordering, okay, what choices do we make? And I think Figaro was a good choice as a companion because Figaro doesn't talk. And I do fully stand by the idea that if characters don't talk, so like Pascal, I think they work better as companions. And I think characters that have a voice should be valley villagers. So Pongo and Perdita technically have a voice, although, they're humans. Roger and what's his wife called? Why have I forgotten his wife? Anita. Oh my god. I can't believe I forgot that. I do think because they have, like, Pongo and Perdita, they have their own voice in the film, you're likely to get them as valley villagers kind of thing rather than as companions. So I think that's sort of some of the ideas of what they're introducing and stuff like that with making Figaro a companion and how well we receive that and stuff like that. And yeah, so that's my thoughts with that. And obviously a lot of the Jungle Book characters as well, that same idea, we've got these characters, how much do people want animal-based companions, not companions, villagers, based over having the standard, like, more human characters, like the princesses, like Alice and stuff like that. Like, what do people want more of in their game? So that's kind of what I'm thinking for the survey. Like, they're trying to work out which realms are going to come. They're trying to work out what people would like to see and work out what they think people will buy, because I do think we're going to get more DLCs obviously in the future. I'm expecting before the Tiana update, I'm expecting a new roadmap. So I'm expecting it end of this month or very beginning of next month. I'm expecting a roadmap to come in, and I think that roadmap is going to show the Tiana stuff just briefly at the beginning, because they have done that before where like the last thing crosses over. I think they're going to show what comes after Tiana for potentially 2 updates, and then they're going to have a 4th section which is the future, and that will probably give hints to any DLC or future content long term, blah blah blah. A bit like some of the other roadmaps. I'm going to try and put graphics up on the screen when I talk about certain things, just so that you understand kind of what I'm getting at. So I do think that we're going to get that, like I said, either very end of this month or beginning of next month. And I think the story thing is something that's going to feature, so I think we're going to get a Skull Rock based image, or something like that. And I think they're just trying to gauge what they can add in terms of, like I said, in terms of DLC, in terms of realms and stuff like that, because they're gonna, like I said, ultimately want to make sales. They're gonna want to make money. So end of this year, big storyline update, possible DLC announcement as well. If not, I expect the DLC early next year. My predictions are Winnie the Pooh to come as a realm and fairly soon. Not this year, but next year. I do think we're gonna get perhaps one of the next requested things, like maybe like Tinkerbell or something like that, as a as tied to the, like, whatever's this kind of second most popular or up there in popularity based on the survey, which actually Tinkerbell wasn't. So perhaps Cinderella, maybe, or Alice in Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland, probably, actually. Yeah, so I could see Winnie the Pooh coming as a realm, Alice in Wonderland coming as a DLC, and then they can do like some crazy kind of like realm decor and stuff like that. Something that might better suit Vanellope, but also something maybe more natural to do with Alice and her origins and stuff. I mean, it depends what other characters they bring to the DLC. But I can certainly see them, yeah, doing something like that, like Alice DLC wise, and then whatever else comes up as quite popular in the suggestions from the survey would then come. I do think that whatever comes as like people vote as not wanting to see, or least likely to see, or least wanting, we're probably not going to see him for a long time. I do think ultimately we're probably going to, like, excluding Star Wars and Muppets, talking exclusively about main Disney franchise things, I think eventually we'll get something from all the universes. Like, we're going to get Snow White, we're going to get Pinocchio, you know, we're going to get fairies, we're going to get Tinkerbell, we're going to get Maleficent, Aurora, blah, blah, blah. They just need to gauge when they introduce what and when. And they're going to want to boost less popular suggestions in between characters that are really, really wanted. That would be, in my eyes, the best way for them to do it. Because if you leave all the less liked characters at the end, you know, one, you're just going to get to a point where eventually people don't play anymore. So that's why we don't have like all the very good characters at the beginning. That sounds bad to say very good characters, but some of the highly most requested characters won't necessarily come straight away. It's why when people go, well, where's Aurora? Where is this? Where is that? They need to keep some excitement going so that people keep playing this game. And I think it is a balance of, you know, highly requested, not so requested, but then highly requested and not so highly requested, to keep you coming back, to keep that turnover going. I truly do believe that. So I feel like I've waffled a lot. I do like how they've asked our opinions as well about clothing and things like that, just to see what kind of things we want with that. They've asked about socials and stuff like that. I do hope when it comes to socials, I don't mind if they give us a sneak peek of something that's to come in the premium shop. I know I do the leak stuff and everything, but I personally believe it can help people who maybe don't invest in the leaks to go, okay, well, I'm not going to spend my moonstones this week because Dreamlight Valley have tweeted that something's coming next week, so I want to save. And, you know, kind of things like that. I think it's good to get rid of some of that FOMO and stuff like that, if that makes sense. Like I said, I have my whole points about how I think the premium shop should be done completely differently. But that's not part of this predictions video. I do think that it's good that they're kind of gauging what we like to see aesthetics wise. It was really hard answering that part of the survey because, as I said in my video, I do want more basic items like a plain white t-shirt, plain black t-shirt. I mean, we do have the high neck long sleeve black t-shirt, but we don't really have like a pure white t-shirt. I know we have a grey t-shirt, but I don't want a grey t-shirt, I want a white t-shirt and stuff like that. Like, I feel they need a lot of basics added to the game. And it's really annoying because they obviously have the assets for it, because I'm quite happy to get the basic shapes we have currently in game, just with more colours. And I'd at least like what I would consider the base colours, the neutrals, so you know, black and white, to kind of come as something that we can wear, because you can't use Touch of Magic in Dream Snaps and other stuff like that. And sometimes I look at it and I go, do you know what I really need? I just need a white t-shirt. I need a basic black t-shirt or something like that. And then you can't use it because we don't have it and it's only in Touch of Magic, and I shouldn't have to waste a Touch of Magic slot to make a basic white t-shirt in my eyes. So I love that they're asking for that. Now obviously aesthetically I don't want a ton of basic clothing. I would rather dress up, like I like dressing up as like a fairy and stuff like that. Like that's the kind of vibes that I love. So I definitely want to get more clothing like that, but I just feel like there's a real core few items that they're missing, but I don't want them to give us like 50 basic t-shirts and sweatpants and then we don't get anything else. So I am intrigued to see how that will come about, what people have voted for, because I really think that's a great time for the male players or people who play as male avatars to really speak up and request the clothing that they feel like they're missing out on. And I definitely think that's a great time for them to express their voice and stuff like that. So I'm glad that they can kind of navigate that as well. But yeah, I guess that's my predictions for the game. Did I make it clear what my predictions are? I don't know. Let's round up. Okay, predictions. Peter Pan, end of this year. Skull Rock storyline, end of this year. I have a feeling that we're going to get possibly another 2 more updates after Tiana before next year. I think we are going to get another DLC. DLC could potentially be Alice. I think we are going to get Winnie the Pooh come as a realm, perhaps. I think if we get Star Wars, it's not going to be for like the immediate future. It's going to be long term, and I think it's going to be DLC because of how the response is to it. I think they're going to have to make it a DLC. So I think Star Wars come as a DLC. Not sure about Muppets because people haven't been overly vocal. Some people have mentioned Muppets, but not everyone. So I'll be intrigued to see or to know your thoughts in the comments down below, what you think of the Muppets coming to the game. Again, I think Muppets would work better as a DLC. I just feel like these kind of like IPs that aren't specifically from the Disney chain need to come as DLC so that people can they can opt into it. So yeah, 2 more updates after Tiana, one of them being a Skull Rock Peter Pan storyline. I think we'll get a DLC announcement in another showcase, which will come at the end of this year. And the DLC will come at the end of this year or next year, again, to push those sales. And yeah, I think that's the main thing. I just want to say, if your main character hasn't... Oh, and Aurora and Maleficent coming, but not until next year. They're going to be the start of next year's storyline, I think. Or the very end of this next act, I guess you could say. So, I hope I've made that clear what my predictions are. Aurora, Maleficent, end of next year. Peter Pan, Hook, this year. DLC announcement, but it's going to be a popular character, but not probably a mix of popular and unpopular. And I think Winnie the Pooh coming into realm, because I think people are really gonna respond well to a Winnie the Pooh realm. Because they do want to keep people happy with the base game as well. If everything gets locked behind a DLC that is really wanted, I think people will get a bit annoyed. So yeah, I think that's my main points and predictions for what's going to come based on what they've shown in the survey, based on patterns within the game and such like that, based on what they do usually with updates and such. So that's my theories. Obviously, I've not mentioned Tiana. Tiana's confirmed, so this is all from Tiana onwards. That's my theories. Let me know your theories. I love speculating. I absolutely love to speculate and theorize on stuff like this. I love to make predictions and also just discuss generally about what we would like to see come to the game. With my predictions, more animal villagers. I think we're likely to get either Lady in the Tramp or 101 Dalmatians come, but they will come as like perhaps a realm or an addition, but that'll be later next year, I think perhaps. Yeah, I think that's most of what I want to say. I'm really bad with wrapping up stuff. Yeah, so these are my predictions. Let me know your predictions in the comments down below. I'd really love to see it. What are your wants? What do you want to see come to the game? And thank you for your time. I do appreciate you sitting here listening to me ramble, because I've rambled a lot. Thank you anyone who likes my videos, who comments, to all my subscribers, and a big thank you to my channel members. You're all absolutely amazing. Just thank you for your support. It means the world. We do have my birthday stream coming up, so if you're not subscribed to the channel, do so you can stay tuned for that. That's going to be a fun event, and we've got a new Tanny challenges where I've challenged you all to create a birthday snap, and I'm very excited to see what you all come up with. I've seen a couple of the submissions so far. They're all looking fantastic, so I'm super excited for that as well. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys!